Vancouver's housing market. Man, just saying the words brings up a ton of feelings, right? Anxiety, frustration, maybe a little bit of hope, and for some, a whole lot of wealth. It really is like a giant, complicated puzzle where the pieces of economics, government rules, and just, real human lives never seem to fit together quite right. So today, we're going to try and piece this whole thing together, looking at the forecasts, the flaws, and what the future might hold for one of the most watched property markets on the planet.
To really get a feel for just how different this market is, you just have to look at this quote. It's from Peter Malik, one of the developers behind the Olympic Village project, and it just perfectly nails the high-stakes, high-pressure world we're talking about, a place where the normal rules of finance sometimes feel like they just go out the window. It's a huge reminder that in Vancouver, real estate is a whole different ballgame.
So how are we going to break this all down? Well, first up, we'll see what the big banks are predicting. Then, we're going to dig into the government's playbook and ask, is any of it actually working? We'll also pull back the curtain on the huge impact of money laundering, bust some myths about foreclosures, and finally, we'll take a look at what happens when the very system meant to protect people completely breaks down.
All right, let's get right into it. What are the bank economists, the people who get paid the big bucks to figure this stuff out, what are they seeing coming down the pipe for Vancouver's housing market?
So according to the economists over at RBC, it's like potential home buyers are caught in this classic pincer movement. On one side, you've got these relentless affordability problems, sky-high prices and really high interest rates. And then, coming from the other side, the job market itself is starting to soften. That means less job security, slower raises. It's just a perfect storm that's pushing that dream of owning a home further and further away for a lot of people.
Okay, so with all that pressure, what's the government actually doing about it? Let's take a look at their strategy, their playbook, for trying to fix this whole mess.
The first play is a big one. Money. A lot of money. The province is pumping an extra $3.18 billion into the BC Builds program. And this isn't some small potatoes initiative. We're talking about a massive investment. And it's aimed squarely at getting more homes built faster, specifically for those middle-income folks who are getting absolutely squeezed out of the market.
Next up, they're taking aim at property speculation. The speculation in vacancy tax is getting hiked up. For foreign owners, it's going up to 3%, and for Canadian citizens, it's actually doubling to 1%. The whole idea here is simple. Make it more expensive to just let a home sit empty. The hope is that it'll push owners to either sell or, actually rent their properties out. And it's not a small chunk of change. They expect this to bring in an extra $47 million a year for more housing projects.
And hey, this playbook isn't just about buying a home. There's some real help coming for renters, too. The rental assistance program is getting a major boost. The average monthly subsidy for low-income families who qualify is jumping from $400 all the way up to $700. That is direct cash right now to help thousands of families and seniors deal with the crazy cost of rent.
Okay, now we need to talk about something a little more hidden, a force that's been quietly twisting the market out of shape. We've talked about the usual suspects, supply, demand, interest rates. But what about the billions, and I mean billions of dollars in illegal cash flowing into Vancouver real estate?
Yeah, we hear that term all the time, right? Dirty money. But what does it actually do to the price tag on a house in Vancouver? How does it really tangibly affect the market for you, for me, for everyday people?
Okay, get ready for this. The scale of the problem is, it's just staggering. According to the expert panel from the Cullen Commission, as much as $5.3 billion in illicit funds might have been poured into BC real estate in a single year. Just let that number sink in. Billions of dollars with zero connection to local jobs or local salaries, just flooding into property.
So what's the bottom line? Well, that same expert panel figured that this tidal wave of cash has artificially pumped up housing prices by as much as 7.5%. Think about that for a second. On a $2 million house, that's an extra $150,000 tacked onto the price. That's a premium you're paying not for a better view or bigger yard, but because of illegal money. It's like a hidden tax on every single person trying to buy a home.
All right, so you hear all this, the high rates, the crazy prices, and you start to wonder, are we about to see a wave of foreclosures? Is the whole system on the brink of collapse? Let's separate the fear from the facts and look at what the numbers actually tell us.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the data on this slide kind of flips the script on all those scary headlines. Despite all the economic anxiety, foreclosure filings right now are actually at historic lows. I mean, look how far down they are from the peak back in 2010. We're talking nearly 90% lower. They're even lower than before the pandemic. Now, a big reason for this is that a lot of homeowners are sitting on a ton of equity, which gives them a cushion. But, and this is a big but, the risk isn't zero. A lot of people are going to face way higher payments when their mortgages come up for renewal.
So, we've looked at the market from 30,000 feet. We've seen the big numbers, the government plans. But what happens when things go wrong for a real person, on the ground? Let's zoom right in on the residential tenancy branch, the system that's supposed to handle disputes between landlords and tenants, and see what happens when it just fails.
This quote, "This is just wow." It's from a landlord who, after a super frustrating experience, called the RTB just looking for answers. And an officer straight up told them this. This isn't just one person complaining about a mistake. This is an admission from inside the system that everyone knows it's fundamentally broken.
And this right here perfectly explains one of the biggest problems. The RTB actually told this landlord that its process for sharing evidence functions on trust. I mean, seriously? You have to read that twice. What that means is that one person can send evidence to the decision maker that the other person never even sees. They never get a chance to challenge it. Can you even imagine? It's a system where you can lose a case based on secret evidence you never even knew existed. It just blows up the whole idea of a fair hearing.
So, with a market this tough and a system that can be this flawed, what on earth is a person supposed to do? Well, here's some really solid advice for anyone trying to navigate this puzzle. First, with interest rates so high, you've got to know your monthly budget inside and out, not just the final sale price. Second, you probably need to be flexible, maybe look at a different neighborhood or a smaller place than you first dreamed of. And finally, in a market with so many moving parts, knowledge is absolutely your best weapon. Do your homework, stay on top of things, and try not to get discouraged.
And that really brings us to the big, fundamental question at the heart of this whole thing. We've seen how policy, economics, even the legal system, it's all shifting under our feet. But it all comes back to this one core tension. What's it going to take for Vancouver's housing to be treated like a home first, a place for people to live, build communities, raise families, and an investment asset second? The answer to that question is going to define this city for a long, long time.